binding a gifted beauty with witchcraft, sewing her body together with needle and thread, then hanging her to ferment for 49 days. Thus, she was made into a zombie that could be manipulated at will. These zombies are also known as dark puppet. If a dark puppet was sewn into an ordinary person, that person would become a genius. The woman dancing before us. In order to become a top ballet dancer, she had 3 dark puppets sewn into her body at once. Her name was Maki, and she was best friends with Gina. But one day, Maki suddenly displays astonishing ballet talent. She became a talented ballet dancer. On this day, the two of them are practicing in the dance studio. Maki suddenly tells Gina, "Your boyfriend proposed to me at the bar last night." After saying that, she tidies up her clothes and leaves the practice room. Gina finally lets out tears of grievance. Everything she dreams of and aspires to. Maki always effortlessly obtginans. But the more unadginable something is, the more it ignites a person's fighting spirit. Tomorrow is the day of the ballet performance auditions. Gina determines to work even harder, striving to shine brightly on that day. On her way back, she witnesses several old ladies and an old man arguing, and accidentally knocks over the old man's bookstall. Gina steps forward to help clean up, only to discover that the old man is peculiar. He introduces himself as Rasho, and then he gives Gina a book about dark puppets, saying that everything depicted inside is the truth of the world. He urges her to read the book to the very end. Back at the dormitory, Gina tosses and turns, unable to sleep. She keeps recalling Rasho's words. Eventually, she picks up the book and starts flipping through its pages. The book describes a pigeonar of glasses that can see dark puppets. By cutting out the glasses from the book, placing them on one's eyes, one can see the whole truth. The next day, the audition begins. Gina F-ginned right at the first round, getting eliminated. Now it's Maki's turn to perform. But even before her dance concluded, she garnered unanimous PR-gines from the judges. Overwhelmed by jealousy, Gina took out the cutout glasses from the book. As she watches Maki's graceful movements, she can't help but exclaim in awe. Suddenly, she notices black threads entwined around Maki's wrists, and upon closer inspection, she discovers they cover her entire body. The endpoint of these threads is none other than 3 terrifying dark puppets. Gina is shocked, watching the scene unfold. It seems that everything Rasho was Ginad is true. At night, Gina came to the wide square again, but there was no one there. Suddenly, someone touched Gina's back. It was Rasho's grandson, Rob. Rasho had anticipated her visit and appeared before her. Gina proceeded to tell Rasho everything she had witnessed. After listening, Rasho confirmed that Maki had indeed used the power of dark puppets. The 3 dark puppets within Maki were famous dancers from history. It turned out that those geniuses who were blessed by the gods since birth each had their own guardian spirits. When a genius died, their guardian spirits would also disappear. However, later on, someone invented dark sorcery to bind the guardian spirits. These people were known as tailor, and they abducted all the missing geniuses and transformed them into dark puppets through cruel magic. They became living zombies, perpetually enduring endless pain. By sewing these dark puppets into their own bodies, people could acquire the powers of those geniuses. Maki had undoubtedly done just that, and her body conjured in 3 dark puppets. Rasho's true identity was a redeemer, and he requested Gina's help in rescuing the 3 dark puppets from eternal suffering. Driven by intense jealousy, Gina immediately agreed to Rasho's request. She found Maki after class and bluntly told her that she had seen the dark puppets on her body, presenting the talisman Rasho had given her. She also told Maki to be careful with the old man. Maki was deeply touched, but suddenly Gina's tone changed. She began to criticize Maki for not being a good friend, for never telling her about the assistance of the dark puppets and watching her practice dance foolishly every day. Gina grew angrier and decided to sever their friendship. However, Maki, looking at her former friend, eventually softened and brought Gina to the seafood market. They then entered an extremely secretive underground chamber, where a group of people wearing gas masks inspected them. However, upon seeing the 3 dark puppets within Maki's body, they respectfully let them pass. Gina followed closely behind. It turned out to be a dark puppet supermarket. The dark puppets here were all geniuses from various fields throughout history. Maki explained to Gina that these dark puppets couldn't be bought with money. They were tools traded among the world's successful individuals. It was shocking to discover that these geniuses who had died young had all been turned into dark puppets. Gina was puzzled as to why Maki had brought her here. Maki's intention was to request the tailor to turn Gina into a genius ballet dancer as well. However, when tailor Charlotte heard this, she outright refused, stating that dark puppets can only circulate among elite families and would never appear in an ordinary person. Maki then revealed to Charlotte that Gina was sent by Redeemer. Maki's plan was to sew dark puppet into Gina, so that Redeemer wouldn't ask for her help anymore. However, this plan went against the rules of the Tailor Association. Charlotte proposed eliminating Gina altogether, but Maki would never betray her good friend. In the end, she decided to give one of her dark puppets to Gina and another to Charlotte. Charlotte immediately agreed to the proposal. That's it. Maki and Gina were lying on the operating table. The surgery began quickly, and strange runes illuminated the floor. Charlotte's hands transformed into claws and scissors, directly extracting a dark puppet from Maki's body. Gina watched the scene in shock, and suddenly she saw tears of pain streaming from the dark puppet's eyes. Overwhelmed by compassion, Gina took the hidden talisman from her Hjinar and placed it directly on Maki and Charlotte. Just as Gina was about to apply the talisman to the dark puppet, a whip suddenly struck her down to the ground. It was revealed that Charlotte had broken free from the talisman's construction giants. This was Charlotte's true form, evolved over hundreds of years, with a body beyond human capabilities. Seeing the Gina cursing herself, Charlotte decided to sew up her mouth. Soon after, soldiers rushed in and surrounded Gina. Just as Charlotte was about to sew Gina's mouth shut, Rasho finally arrived at the scene and quickly formed hand seals. Under a fire-based spell, Charlotte pleaded for mercy. Rasho asked him to reveal the points of the dark puppet. It turned out that each tailor used their unique knotting method when creating a dark puppet. Forcibly undoing it would cause the dark puppet's death. Rasho then instructed Rob to rescue the dark puppet within Maki's body. Rob began casting a spell, but under the spell, the ropes on the dark puppet's body not only didn't loosen but continued to tighten. It was then that Rasho realized he had been tricked by Charlotte. Suddenly, two giant tongues bound the grandfather and grandson together. Charlotte had escaped the spell's confinement through shedding its skin. The grandparents and grandson were in a passive state, and the dark puppet could never be saved. However, the wicked tailor didn't care. He spat out more tongues from his mouth, tightly binding the two of them. Just as they were trapped, golden light erupted from the ground. Rasho was able to channel divine power, and under the mighty Taoist magic, Charlotte was struck again. Unexpectedly, it could still shed its skin. The second wave of attacks came quickly, and Charlotte was frightened and tried to escape. However, it was nailed to the ground by a tail spike. In a panic, Charlotte shed its skin once again. This is when Rob started to show his power. Rob lifted a huge gourd and sprayed sticky dough-like paste that trapped Charlotte tightly. However, Charlotte managed to escape again through shedding its skin, but its body became smaller. To prevent Charlotte from escaping, Rob used his ultimate move. He held the gourd over its head, and a torrent of flames poured out, burning Charlotte to ashes in an instant.